Hello everyone and welcome to From the Top, the podcast where we go through the games of Metacritic one by one and discuss them, critique them and ultimately rate them. And we're starting off this week. We're not starting off this week, but
we are looking at a game this week.
We are looking at a game this week for sure. It's definitely on the list somewhere. Let me just see. Okay, so this week we are discussing The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which is number 14 on the list, the greatest games of all time on Metacritic, with a score of 97. So Breath of the Wild was a launch title for the Nintendo Switch back in March 2017. And arguably it's still probably one of the best looking and best optimized games on the Nintendo Switch.
That's probably something that I want to talk about later.
Okay.
The fact that it still looks fucking amazing.
Yeah, it really does. But we'll definitely be discussing the gorgeous graphics and everything as we go through. So I think everybody here has played this game. I just want to throw it out to you guys. Like, did you play it on launch? Or, I mean, I guess the only way to play this game is on the Switch. I don't know how many of us here have a Switch, but...
but it's on the Wii U as well.
Oh, sorry, it is on the Wii U. You're right, correct. My bad. Okay. So, guys, where did you play the game? And do you know how much have you played? Did you complete it? What were your first impressions of the game? I'll hand it over to Michael to kick us off.
It's so weird that you're like presenting this like you don't know. I played it on your Switch, Sean.
I know, but it's like gotta keep the mystery.
Yeah, fair. I played it on the Switch and I didn't finish the game, as in I didn't go and kill Ganon at the end. I did pretty much everything else. I got all the Guardians and got the Master Sword and explored every dungeon. I'm pretty sure I went to Hyrule Castle as well. But I just never... I think I was borrowing your Switch, so that might have been an element of why I stopped playing it. And maybe I moved on to a different game. It wasn't through any faults with the game that I stopped playing it.
Someday, Michael, you are going to finish a game. It's going to happen, and I believe in you. Someday you are going to manage it.
For anyone who doesn't know, I just have a horrible habit of getting like right to the end of a game and never finishing it.
I don't know how you get that far though. I can understand giving up at the start, but like all that way.
Well, I've given up at the start loads of times as well, man. But no, just something just...
I'd love to see you in a marathon, 45.5 kilometers. You know what, fuck this, I'm going home.
Yeah, it's not worth it. I've done all the cool parts, so why would I bother finishing? And I think I put like 30 or 40 hours into it altogether, I'd say. So I've seen a lot of the game, if I'm being honest. What about you, Steve?
So I didn't play this on release. This was just in my backlog. I kept meaning to get to it, so I basically played it for the podcast. I played it on the Switch. I didn't get everything because obviously the game is enormous, but I did all the dungeons. I went to Hyrule Castle. I did beat Ganon. I also did some of the DLC as well. Not all of it, but most of it. And hot take here, guys, but it's not a bad game. I know a lot of people have been saying it's not great, but I think it's pretty good, personally.
I do think a lot of this podcast is just going to be us effusively just praising the game, to be honest, and there are negative points that we will bring up, and there are some sort of things I'm not ambivalent on, but I'm not sure exactly where I land.
Yeah, I think it should be a rule that every time you praise this game, you have to add something you didn't like to the end of it as well.
Okay, that'll be an interesting exercise to do as we go along, yeah.
Well, I think classic Sean, I'm going to be the one here who probably is like the spanner in the works with it anyway, because not that I dislike the game, but like a previous podcast we've done, I think...
every previous podcast we've done?
No. I think it wasn't for me, if you get me. Because my experience was I bought it with my Switch back in 2018 purely because it was praised so well, and I was like, I think did it win Game of the Year 2017?
It won the Game Awards that year.
I think that was like, okay, I have to try it. Same reason I got Witcher 3 as well. Got very, very far in that game. But anyway, I'd never played any Zelda game before. booted up, like I was blown away by like how like gorgeous it looked and the scale of it and everything. But I think actually like I can draw a lot of comparisons. Just like Cards on the Table didn't get very far in this at all. Probably got like 10 hours, maybe no less than 10 hours I'd say in it. But I think I've played it enough that like I understand like the mechanics and,
of course,
and all that.
After 10 hours you'd hope so.
But I think scale of it was a big thing that turned me off, and the pacing of it, to be honest. And I was thinking about this morning, actually, coming in here. And I think one of the things, like, it's not that I'm against those types of games, because I love like open world games like Red Dead and stuff like that. But I think if I'm not, if I don't have like a big interest in the characters or the world or the universe, it's hard for me to stick with it when it's that expansive, you know?
Because that's something that Breath of the Wild sort of... And some people like its approach to storytelling, but it very much leaves you to just go on your own and like not even more. There's a central motivation, but there's not a lot of moment-to-moment motivations other than exploring.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like it's literally, I think I'm just talking personally, I think with me it comes down to like, do I have an invested interest in the universe and the characters? And if that doesn't click with me, I just find it hard to persevere with a game that's that slow paced and that throws like I remember like last night I was booting this up again to like try it out, and just zooming out on the map, I was like, fuck, dude. There's so like, and that's really cool. Like it's not a negative to the game. It's just for somebody who's not grabbed by the universe, it's hard to like make myself be like, oh, I really want to see what's over there, because I don't really want to.
That's really funny, because I completely see your point and the logic in it, but that's almost the opposite of my experience. As in, you mentioned the pace of it. I loved the relaxed pace of everything. I found it so sort of refreshing after other open world games I've played. Like I've tried to get into Ghost of Tsushima recently, and it's just a checklist. It's just, and we often reference Ubisoft when we talk about these, but like it's not always Ubisoft, but they're the classic example to give. But I just love that Breath of the Wild is way more laid back with all that stuff, and it's a lot more comfortable letting you just go along at your own pace and explore as much as you want, rather than I got to clear these 5 bandit camps to unlock my bow upgrade sort of thing.
Yeah, and like that that kind of relaxed pacing, like that is a nice element of it, like you said. And it kind of like reminds me a bit of like Red Dead 2 a bit as well. Like when you like load into that game, like you're not like bombarded by like you need to go and do this. Like it's very chill as well. Like you're like usually, you know, we've talked about before, Arthur's just doing something like sitting by the lake or something, that kind of stuff, you know? So yeah, I don't think that's a negative point of it. I think again, it was just like, for example, if the game was faster paced, but I still wasn't hugely interested in the universe and stuff, I would have probably, like, things would have been happening for me quicker that it would have kept me engaged, if you get me, do you know? But anyway, look, this is just a personal point. I think that's why I still haven't gone back and completed it or even played really that much more of it, because there was just other games out there that grabbed my attention more.
Yeah, that had guns in them.
Yeah, clearly, obviously. I mean, that bow and arrow just wasn't doing it.
If you had a red dot on it, maybe. But just one thing, just to sort of put some structure on this talk, is I wanted to bring up the intro to the game and get your guys' feelings on it, because I think this has an amazing intro and tutorial. That whole plateau section is really good at teaching you the mechanics and giving you a nice little contained open world area to explore. I thought that was such a good idea for them to do at the beginning, like the way the pace that they give you new abilities and new stuff. It's pretty quick, as in, like, you get all the what do you call his special abilities, like the magnet and the...
Oh, I can't remember, but...
His, like, Sheikah Slate abilities?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. You get all that stuff pretty quickly as you're going along, and they give you a dungeon to learn all those mechanics in, and then you can apply it to the open world. And it's very well designed that way. And then you get the glider at the end, and that opens up so much more possibilities as well. What did this game grab you at the beginning? Did you think it was too leisurely at the beginning, or did you like that intro?
The very moment that I walked out of the cave and I heard that little, piano twinkly music, the second I heard that, I knew I was going to like this game.
Yeah.
I knew immediately. I didn't know what it was. It was kind of, this is a game that I am going to love. And it's interesting that I had that thought, because you know what? I don't care what people say. This is a good game. Okay, I'm going to die on that hill if I need to.
Controversial. Oh my God.
I know it's a hot take, I'm sure, but I don't care what the reviews say. This is a well-made game. But now, even though I'm saying that, it is a great game, but I kind of lean a little bit in Sean's camp in terms of the way the story is told. I think I could look at this and hands down say this is the best Legend of Zelda game. Hands down. I don't think there's any game that tops it. Having said that, I feel that in a very kind of detached and kind of coldly analytical way. I'm looking at the design, I think that's flawless. That's done so well. That's brilliant. But I don't really care about the game as much as I do other games. So a really good example of comparison would be Twilight Princess. Sorry, Sean, you wanted to say something there.
Sorry, I was just going to say, when you say you don't care, do you mean in terms of story and stuff, or?
Kind of story, yeah, but I just mean, if someone, so a friend of mine here asked, I told him, I finally finished, Breath of the Wild the other day. He says, what do you think about it? And if that had been something like Dark Souls the first time, I'd be like, man, it's the best game. You've got to play it, it's so good. But when he asked, what did you think? I was just like, yeah, it's just a great game. That was pretty much my reaction. I can say it's a great game, but I'm not heavily invested in it, weirdly enough. And I do think a big part of that is the story, because while I quite like the story, I do agree that there's some issues with the pacing. And this is clearly a game that chose a direction and stuck with its guns. It was like you were saying, Michael, it's going for a very relaxed kind of vibe. It's not, wrestling control away from you for a really long time. And the whole idea is for you to just kind of relax. It's no coincidence that all the music in this would fit in really well at a yoga studio or something. It's not intrusive. It's all just kind of there floating in the background. And that's great. I love that. It's such a relaxing game to play, and I could play it for hours, but I'm not invested in it, weirdly. It's a game that I would play to switch off, which is good, but it's difficult to feel emotionally invested in.
It's funny you bring up the music thing, because I have heard some criticism of the music, especially in comparison to The Legend of Zelda as a series has some of the most iconic music ever in video games, really. And it's very much part of its aesthetic identity as a series. So I personally loved their approach on this game, just to dial it back during those open world parts, to have because I loved the musical approach to the sparse piano sort of weird Philip Glass sort of thing going on, that occasionally there's one part where if you're riding through on a horse, you can hear the classic Breath of the Wild Legend of Zelda theme coming in subtly underneath the music. And then when you get to a town or a dungeon, it has its own set music, so that amplifies the atmosphere in those areas. I absolutely love that. But I have to recognize that some people were like, well, this is boring. Like Stephen said, it could be played in a yoga studio, you can hear the mats being unfurled and people bending over,
I did occasionally play it. I did occasionally play it while listening to podcasts, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is noteworthy. I wouldn't have played, I mentioned before, Twilight Princess, which is an interesting comparison, because out of all the Zelda games, in some ways that's one of the most lazily designed, because it is very much, let's make Ocarina of Time but bigger. It's taking the most tried and true format and sticking with it hard, and just banking a lot of nostalgia. But I love that game, is the thing. I absolutely love that game. I'm super invested in it. I love the story. I love the characters. And there's great set pieces in it. And if there is an issue with this game, there's a lack of set pieces. There's cool moments, but I would argue that it doesn't have many like really holy shit moments because of the laid back vibe it's going for. And I'm not necessarily saying it would be better with those moments in it, because that would ruin the vibe it's going for, but it is a flaw that you can point to and say, hey, that's there. But you know what? Despite the haters, I think it's a good game.
I'm sort of feeling like Steve's pretty positive about this game. I thought I'd hate it.
Yeah.
But the only counter I'd put to that, Steve, is you're correct. Because it doesn't have this linear structure that the other games have, it doesn't have set pieces in the same way, and I will admit as well, the dungeon design, while like technically great, can be a bit repetitive visually. So it doesn't have the same character that the older games have. But while it doesn't have these sort of prescriptive set pieces, it does have a lot more organic stuff that comes up. So people randomly playing will come across like an enemy encampment or something, and something crazy will happen by accident, and it's more organic and emergent, really. That stuff was amazing for me. The fact that they say it's sort of like Metal Gear Solid 5, as in that game doesn't have good boss battles. It doesn't have the good moments that the previous games had, but has your own personal moments where you go, oh yeah, this one time I sniped everyone in the camp and I went through, but there's this one guy I forgot and he alerted the whole base and I had to scramble out, and like those sort of moments that are personal to your playthrough. I think it excels in that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I can feel ludonarrative dissonance on the horizon of your speech here. Now I can feel it coming.
On the tip of my lips.
No, you are right. And I'm not... Sorry, I was just saying I'm agreeing with you. Yeah, no, I just like, you are right 100%. And I'm not saying that, you know, it should be this way. I'm just saying if we're talking about this, like, is it a perfect game? I would say no, but how would you fix that is kind of the issue, you know, because if it leans into the things that I'm talking about, it detracts from what it does so well, which is exploration. And that's the thing. This is a game that you can play for hours. I didn't even mention, I put like almost 90 hours into this game.
Wow.
Holy shit.
Well done.
So, yeah, it's that much fun. And you know, one thing I really appreciate about this is the way you level up almost everything is done so well in this, because in most games, I think, I feel like if you want to level something up, you always go to the same place. So, for example, Red Dead Redemption, really often you'll go to like your camp, and that's where you kind of like, you know, you level up your camp and you buy things for your camp, and maybe you go to a shop as well, and you know, and that's about it. That's about all you can do to kind of upgrade your character. But in this, you know, you might go, say, I'll go to the Great Fairy to upgrade my equipment, but on the way I picked a couple of flowers. Maybe I can, you know, use that to cook some items. Oh, great. Oh, while I was on the way to cooking things, I found a Korok seed. I should upgrade my Korok stuff. And it constantly keeps evolving in such a way that you can always level something up, and it makes it really hard to put down. Much like Donkey Konga.
that was one of your weaker ones now, I'll say, Steve.
But he got it in silver.
Fair play to him.
Well, why don't we just talk about kind of like go a bit, dig it. Why don't we dig a bit deeper into the game, and then there'll probably
Why
be...
don't we?
Why don't we indeed?
Capital idea.
Before you go any further, Sean, I want it to be known that I think this is a good game. And don't you dare say otherwise.
Put it on the record, guys. Put it on the record. So I just wanted to talk a bit about combat in the game, and also just digging deeper into the mechanics, like your weapon degradation and stuff like that, and also
the elephant in the room. Yeah,
and also things like the cooking and crafting in the game as well. What did you guys think of these mechanics? Let's focus on combat first of all. How did you guys find the combat? Was it challenging for you, or did you think it was too easy maybe, or too difficult?
I think they hit a nice sweet spot with it mostly. Some of the Lionel fights which are like the big horseback senator
they're tough
sort of guys. Yeah, they were tough, but it was nice that there was that challenge there, and they're very dynamic fights because they are dangerous both at short and long range. Those
at that stage when you're fighting them, you really have to know how to dodge and do the flurry attack, because if you can't do that, you are going to die straight away with those guys.
And also you need to know how to use the environment around you a lot of the time as well. Like one thing that was a saving grace for me is the fact that fire moves around the environment, but also sends a shaft or like a draft of air up that you can carry yourself with your glider to get airtime and to shoot guys in the head with the bow. That sort of stuff
That's cool.
is very sick. Yeah. The amount of options it gives you are amazing. It's not like to the extent of like a Deus Ex or something where it's designed so that you can approach things like stealthily, or you can hack, or you can shoot. It's sort of all like you still have to hit guys with your fucking sword at the end of the day, or your bow. But there's a lot of different colours that you can paint that particular canvas with.
I love it when you try to do metaphors. It's really cute. I know,
because I was halfway through paint and I was sort of like, this isn't working, Michael. Like, what is Legend of Zelda the canvas, or is like weapons?
It's like
paint?
Mario Paint, because there's so many options. No, I'm sorry.
But weapon degradation, that's an interesting one, because it's definitely the most disliked element of this game.
That's something that really annoyed me. All right, yeah.
It's definitely
an
annoyance.
Didn't annoy me at all. I thought it was great. I thought it was a really good idea.
Stephen likes this game.
I want to go on the record to say that I think this is a good game.
Objection.
I don't care what IGN, Famitsu, Barack Obama says about this game. I think it's a good game.
Obama had some controversial takes on this game.
He did. No, sorry, you guys. I will say like why I thought it was good, but you guys go ahead first. You say you disliked it.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm not a huge fan of it in any game really, but I think it's okay to a degree, say if you can repair the weapon or something like that, but the fact that it was just like, okay, that's fucked now, throw it away, and then you have to go to like maybe a weapon that's like less effective or you liked less or whatever. I don't know, that just kind of like annoyed me basically.
I will have to say at this point, I should have brought it up earlier, we have made a video on Breath of the Wild previously for our channel, the cardboard box item on YouTube, look it up, and we'll have a link in the video for this as well to it. But
you didn't even say please.
Pretty please with sugar on top. Go watch the fucking video
and just throw us a like there and
throw an like out, lads. What does a like cost you? Nothing. But in that video I think I wrote this part, but I was sort of like defending weapon degradation in it and saying one thing it does lead to interesting choices while you're playing about what type of weapon you want to use. So if you've like a load of good swords and someone drops like a spear or something, do you sacrifice one of your good swords for that longer range, etc.? Like different sort of choices like that can be interesting. And I do like it mostly as you're going along, because it leads to some fun moments in the middle of combat where your sword breaks and you're like, shit, okay, I either switch or I grab like a skeleton's arm that's on the ground and fucking kill him with that. But where it is annoying is like when you get the Master Sword and you use that and then that breaks. It's sort of like, I have the coolest weapon in the game and now it's gone forever, basically. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a way to keep that. Yeah, the Master Sword.
The Master Sword doesn't break.
I'm pretty sure the Master Sword breaks.
No. It loses energy, but then it takes 10 minutes to recharge, and then you can use it again.
Oh, okay. That shit's all over that point then. Fuck.
Oh, yes. The Master Sword breaks, but it doesn't break like any other weapon in Breath of the Wild. Instead, its power drains. After 10 minutes, you can use it again.
Sean is accessing his photosensitive memory there.
He went out into the sun for a while. Reading it all. Okay, sorry. I take back everything I've ever said about video games.
Good man yourself. This is from the bottom. So I personally didn't have any... Actually, a question I wanted to ask you guys. What are you laughing at?
Nothing. Sorry, go on.
Did you often run out of weapons completely, where you were in a situation where like you'd literally no weapons at all?
Some of the Lionel fights I got down pretty low on weapons, especially earlier in the game when you don't have any stronger weapons that can like withstand or do a lot of damage, I should say. So some of them, and it made those fights a lot more fraught, I have to say.
That didn't happen to me, but I wasn't that far in the game, I guess, and I was just picking up every weapon that I found on the ground, so I had like loads, I guess.
That's what I think the saving grace is, the fact that like I don't think I was ever in a position where I had no weapons whatsoever outside the very start of the game.
I guess I just would have rather, though, say if they only let you carry 3 or 4, but they didn't break, or you could repair them or something. Do you know?
See, my my issue with that would be, and it comes back to what Michael was saying, that if you only had 3 or 4, you're going to stick with your favorite weapon and you're not going to vary it up, which, because like in your head you think this is the one I like, and the gameplay would just become a little repetitive and you do nothing to change that.
I have to agree with that point, because I've played through Elden Ring and I've only used the starting sword. I just upgraded the starting sword, which is the most boring way to play through the game, basically.
Yeah, maybe I guess it would probably need like a change in the whole combat system to do that, because if they did that, then maybe they'd want to make like certain enemies like weaker to certain weapons and stuff, and that would encourage you to change up weapons, but that would be changing the whole combat system.
Listen, Sean, just so you're aware, right? I think this is a good game, and I'll be damned if you're going to like diss this game, because I think, despite what the people say, it's a I
The people, i.e. me.
Yeah, you represent everyone else, Sean.
I'm with you guys. I'm with you.
I really enjoyed it because one thing my strategy, so to speak, was do you know the rods that you can get from like random people, like the thunder rods, flame rods, and freeze rods and stuff? So I would use them once and then quickly switch out for another weapon and attack people, and that just worked that was really effective for me.
One thing I will say is I found the bombs a little bit, maybe it's just my play style, I found the bombs a little fiddly to use in combat sometimes. Maybe it was because of the cooldown, because I generally like would miss half the enemies with my first bomb and then like be a scramble of like, do I attack these guys or wait for the cooldown and just run away? But I'm sure like there's plenty of videos of like competent players using them efficiently.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It's a pretty unpopular game. I wouldn't know if many people have uploaded footage.
We get your shtick, okay? We get it, Steve. You fucking hate this game and you're just being sarcastic.
Hey man, I like this game. But speaking just to your point there, I do think that that's kind of the point, because I don't think the bombs are supposed to be used in combat. They're kind of a last resort, so they're supposed to be fiddly. Surely.
I was using them the whole time in combat.
Sean's like, I thought they were grenades. No, that's a good point, I guess. And it's just, and they do have to temper them with the cooldown just so that you don't spam bombs, basically, because that would be all you do. Like, but like in general, I have to say the combat's pretty well balanced, and I never really wanted to avoid enemy encounters much, which is a good sign. Like, it's not like, you know, towards the end of Elden Ring, I'm just running past enemies because I'm not bothered getting creamed by like 5 guys. Let me rephrase that sentence.
Sometimes though, like the random encounters though, like they can really drain your resources when you don't really need to fight like a group of goblins or whatever they're called. Do you know, you can you can just like skirt around them.
Yeah, the stealth in the game isn't amazing, and is there one or two parts? Well, there was only one part I came up against where I had to use stealth, which is when you were in the Yiga clan. Hideout, and like that was probably my least favorite section of the game, if I'm being honest.
Same. Yeah, I don't think that bit is like great. I will say it's a lot better than previous stealth sections. Like I'm thinking in particular of the one in Ocarina of Time, which is actually pretty bad in hindsight, and even the one in Wind Waker, which is a big improvement, that also isn't that great. I think actually Wind Waker, this is one of the few places where I would say Wind Waker did it better. I think the stealth in Wind Waker is better than this one. So there's one thing that the Wind Waker is. But you know what, lads? I think this game is a good game. I'll tell you one thing, though, I didn't like. One thing
controversial. Here we go.
Yeah, here. This is probably my least favorite thing about the entire game. So there's a lot of stuff in it that I think is really good that other people don't like. The weapon degradation, that's fine. I'm really glad. The open world design is great. Lots of stuff is good. But what I really, really didn't like, the rain.
The rain, because for anyone who doesn't know, when it rains, your climbing ability diminishes a lot, and you basically can't climb because you'll just slide down, or it's a lot more difficult at least.
And this is the thing, because almost every other part of this game, if something hinders you, there's something you can do about it. Almost in every situation. But when it rains, that's the one point in the game where you're kind of just stuck. Like, there were so many points where I was climbing this massive cliff And, I'd be on this little ledge when it starts raining. It's like, okay, well, I just have to wait here because what else can I do? I can't warp anywhere because this is the closest I can get. And if I go around, it'll take twice as long. It just makes more sense to just wait this out. So that is one part of the game, whereas this game is really, really impeccably designed. But that bit I felt was a mistake. That was a misstep.
One thing I think they could have done is, the way you can like use buffs throughout the game to like help with heat resistance and stuff like that. If they had an equivalent for rain, I know it's not as immediate. Like what stops your hands being, I guess, like some sort of sticky glue sort of thing you could put on.
Just eat a load of spiders, That'd be fine.
Eat a load of spiders. Yeah, that's recommended.
That's lads.
Sorry for putting that image in anyone's head.
Just getting images of that. Yeah.
I just need to shoehorn in. I think this game has the best. It has amazing sound design in general. Like, as in, like when you're out in the open world and you're hearing like the hoot of an owl at night and, the wind and stuff like that. That's all amazing. But I think it's UI and menu sounds are my favorite in any game.
They are very cool.
Ever made. Like just a little, and like they sort of link it back to the music in general throughout, like the little piano twinkles are like pretty unadorned, but they use them for like when you open a chest or when you like pick up an item or when like you collect something. Like those little riffs on the piano are really good, and just like the menu sounds in general, the whole audio and visual design of mixing the older classic sort of Zelda medieval stuff with like a more futuristic, modern sort of thing, and the way they incorporate the yeoman, ancient Asian art style into it as well as part of the like design of the shrines and everything is really cool. I really dig the visual style. It can get repetitive. Like I think the shrines and the guardians all look very similar to each other. So that's one thing I'm not as big on. But just a big shout out to the game still looking fucking amazing for running on the Switch when a Pokemon game came out literally this month that looks shit.
Yeah.
Like, and it has so much money behind it and doesn't look like 1% as good as Breath of the Wild.
That was beautiful, man.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I had to get that out of my... I sort of like this game as well, I have to say.
Yeah,
I'm coming around to it.
I'm getting that, yeah.
You see my point of view, right? It's not bad. It's not bad.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Just very quick aside, do you know like why the Guardians are like so central to this game?
Do you mean lore, story-wise, or mechanically?
No, like in design-wise, like why they're such a important feature to it.
Well, I guess since you don't have any classic Zelda dungeons, they sort of fulfill that role.
Well, yeah, that's true. And actually, in a moment, I want to talk about like the Hyrule Castle Assault thing, which is, in my opinion, the best part of the entire game. But before we get to that, so the director of this, Hidemaru Fujibayashi, he said when he was playing the original Legend of Zelda game, do you know the Octoroks character or the Octorok monsters in the original games?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're like the little octopus monster things, right? And they obviously transitioned into 3D in Ocarina of Time. And he said when he saw them in Ocarina of Time, they're not how he pictured them at all. Because he always imagined the Octoroks being like giant creatures that like you really had to tackle because they were quite difficult to fight in the original game. And then when they went into 3D, they were like, oh, there's just these little octopus creatures, they're not that challenging at all. So he put the Guardians into this game because that was how he saw the Octoroks when he was playing the original game.
That's sick. That's cool. I have to say the Guardians also probably owe a lot to Shadow of the Colossus as well, just in terms of the design of like climbing this huge creature and like, and they take it a step further because like there's a dungeon then in the middle of the creature, which is like really good part of the game. But I thought of this thing, a quick side note is that when they were designing the game, they made a 2D version.
Oh, yeah.
So they created like a old style, like the original Zelda game, just to map out how all the systems would work together and to make like a rough layout of the map. And that's such a interesting design approach, just to make like a really lo-fi version of it, just to see, fire spreading works this way, so that's how this interacts with this other system. And that's really cool. One thing that's really admirable about this game is that they took some wild swings with it, I have to say. So like completely because Zelda was known for having repetitive design. Like Stephen could probably speak a lot more to this, but like you're saying, Twilight Princess was basically trying to be Ocarina 2. That seemed to plague the franchise for a while, and they really just like threw out a lot of stuff. They were merciless with a lot of the things they took out of the game and stuff they added in. But like I can't imagine the next Zelda not having all these, the stasis ability and the like electromagnet sort of those sort of abilities. All that stuff was so fun in this game that if they made let's just make a Zelda and make it open world, it wouldn't be half as interesting.
Yeah, you're right, actually, because I remember when I saw the trailers for this, the magnetic stuff and stasis stuff is completely new. And it's amazing how early they introduce it. Like, before you even leave the plateau, you have essentially all your key abilities. And that's sort of amazing. I feel like that shouldn't work, but by God, it works, and I will die on that hill. I don't care what people say. This is a good game, and sorry for killing you there, Sean.
No, you're all right.
But yeah, no, it's really. I find your man Hidemaru Fujibayashi. He's a really interesting director because he's done. So the games that he did, he specialized in a lot of the mobile games. I think the first game that he directed was the Minish Cap, which is probably, this actually is a controversial take now, but that is, in my opinion, the best mobile game. A lot of people will say Link's Awakening and die on that, but I personally think the Minish Cap is like trounces that 100%. And then the next big game he did was Skyward Sword, which is my least favorite Zelda game. But now it has to be said, he took some big swings with Skyward Sword as well. It wasn't for me, but a lot of the stuff that are in this game were actually born out of that game, which is really interesting. Like stamina first appeared in Skyward Sword. That wasn't in this game first. Cool. And being able to climb stuff. And just, there is kind of a focus on exploration that's... all I can really say, it's a different focus in terms of exploration. It's obviously not done to the same degree here, but it's interesting how he is not afraid to try different things, even though it didn't necessarily seem that way with Skyward Sword, which is a little bit story heavy, if I'm being, quite... there's a word that I'm looking for, but I've lost it. So
being a little bitch.
Being a little bitch, yeah.
It's interesting. We were talking about like the story design on it and how that works. And Sean made a great point about Red Dead 2. For all its flaws, had a consistently engaging story throughout. And,
did I say that?
Characters. Like I think you said it's like one of the best narratives in an open world.
Yeah. We
can edit that in.
Yeah. I can make you say anything, Sean. The power of audio. This game definitely doesn't focus on that, which I think is a positive overall. It's sort of similar, like there's been a lot of comparisons with Elden Ring, and like that's got that classic From Software design where like the story is basically just a smell in the air around you that you don't even have to engage with. There's another great analogy.
I like that one. Like, cool. Sometimes you're really good with those.
Yeah, they just come off the top, man. I'm like fucking freestyling
from the
here.
top.
From the top. But I admire that Breath of the Wild didn't go down that road. To be honest, even after playing it for 40 hours, I couldn't tell you a whole lot about the story. I know it's post-apocalyptic to a certain extent. There was a big battle before Link wakes up and he has to go kill Ganon. That's sort of all the context I needed, to be honest.
Yeah, it kind of works. It's kind of a bit like Mad Max in a way that, all you really need to know is shit's gone down and you need to fix it. And it's...
I'm sorry to interrupt you, because that's funny. One thing I wanted to say is... when we were doing the Ocarina of Time episode for From the Top, check that out, that's the first episode in the series, we compared Ocarina of Time to Citizen Kane. And I think a good, lazy comparison for me to make to a film for Breath of the Wild would be Fury Road, the latest Mad Max film, because it's breathing new life into a franchise that was quite repetitive. It's updating it for a modern audience. And also the male lead isn't the hero of the story necessarily. He's just a guy who's there helping out, but the female lead is sort of the real protagonist in a way. Sorry, I just really had to shoehorn that in there because it was
Yeah.
just a fun comparison to make.
I've personally never done cocaine, right? But the bits where you take on the Guardians after you've got the Master Sword are about as close as I can imagine being on cocaine to be. It is so good because. So Sean, did you get the Master Sword when you played?
No, I'm nowhere near that.
Okay. Did you come across any Guardians when you were playing?
So they're the spider robot guys who shoot lasers out their eye.
The smaller guys, no,
they're big.
They're massive. Then no, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, you're out of this
Sorry.
conversation.
Yeah. Just go for it, man. Gosh.
But yeah, Michael, you know yourself, like when you come across those, how incredibly intimidating. You basically have to accept that you have to run away or almost certainly die. And
Yeah.
very best case scenario, you might kill one, but you're going to use up all your equipment. But
Yeah.
then when you come back with the Master Sword, and I don't know if it took me a while to figure this out. I didn't realize this at the start, but you can chop their legs off with the Master Sword.
I didn't realize that. My main approach to them was to try deflect the incoming beam laser thing.
Oh yeah. But it's so satisfying. Again, sound design, very very big thing in this. Can we get a sound effect of like the sound it makes when we cut the legs off?
Sure.
Cool. Well, I mean afterwards, but okay. No, but it's really satisfying. And this is the thing: you chop each leg off, make it completely immobile, and then just like kill it, and it's. Oh my god, so satisfying. And if you said that you got to the castle bit, Michael?
Yeah, I didn't do the whole castle, but I'd been to the castle, yeah.
I would argue, and I imagine there might be quite a lot of people, because this is a game that I myself personally didn't want to finish for a long time because it was just so much fun being in the world. But I will say to people who haven't finished it or haven't approached the castle yet, the actual assault on the castle is so much fun because it is an assault. Like you're going in and you're just like they're defending the castle so hard, and you have to kill, I would say, bare minimum about like 12 guardians, I would say, before you can get to the top, and it is just incredible. The actual boss fight at the end is a bit meh,
yeah.
but it's still like it's it feels conclusive enough that it works. I feel that's a good point actually to segue into the main dungeons and the bosses. Actually, what did you guys think of those?
Yeah, that's one point I was thinking of when you're talking about the castle being the assault on the castle being amazing. That I really liked what they did with the Guardians. I loved the design, and the approach to going into them was always fun, because like you get a companion and they help you out, and it's always like a really exciting period, and it breaks up the play really well. When you get into them, their visual design is very flat, I feel like, especially in comparison with the rest of the world. And the shrines, I think the shrines look amazing. The dungeons where you do like a little puzzle, but it's just so repetitive. And because like they all look the same. The layout and the puzzle's different, but they all look exactly the same. And I can see why they did that. That's something we see in every open world game. You see it in Elden Ring, you see it in Skyrim. They have to copy and paste assets just so they can fit the sheer amount of dungeons into the game to give it enough content. And the design of those dungeons is amazing. Like I found them consistently engaging, but just it does make you harken back to like the older Zeldas where each temple would have its own unique thing, and it would be so interesting. And that's where it began to like you don't want to be taken out of a game by something like that, but I did find it did that a bit for me personally.
Sure. Yeah, I think I can absolutely understand your point, but my way of looking at it is if you take issue with the lack of variety in dungeons, it's kind of like taking issue with the lack of variety in Candy Crush. Like it's
Wow.
it's about the puzzles,
That hurt.
I'm not attacking you directly yet, but I'm just saying, like, because the focus is entirely on the puzzles, like I just go in and think, okay, how do I figure this out? I'm not like looking at the walls and thinking like, ooh, I wonder who built this, like it was just, here's a puzzle. go.
No, I don't need
And
to
I
know
just
the
didn't-
fucking architect's middle name or anything. It's just fucking like I want
Man,
a bit more.
I think this is a good game, okay? And I'm
I
sick of your shit here. You're dissing this game all day.
I see where you're coming from, Michael, but I enjoyed the. I don't now. My memory's a bit hazy. I've done shrines. Are they the same as the dungeons you're talking about?
Yeah,
Or-
pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've I enjoyed that. Like, okay, I'm going to go in here and just do a puzzle away from the rest of the world,
Yes,
kind of thing,
yes,
and like get my thing at the end or whatever it was, and leave, and leave, and then I'm back out in the world and cool. I've ticked off that shrine in a way. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't have any issue with them, to be honest. I thought they were a nice element of the game.
I love how inoffensive you're being for all of this, Sean, and I appreciate it because, you know, as I've stated before, I think this is quite a good game.
Yeah. Of course.
I do think they work mechanically. Like the puzzles themselves, I found are amazing, and I like that there's often multiple solutions, as in you can use all your abilities in interesting ways. Like you see, I've seen clips online where people like jump on their shield and throw a bomb in the air and use the explosion momentum to just launch them to the end and that sort of stuff. It's cool that they left the door open for that stuff.
I also like the gyroscope puzzles on the Switch as well. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that was on Wii U too. Yeah.
I actually didn't really like them that much. I mean, just personally now, I know I've said I like this game a lot, but personally I didn't think that was like one of the stronger moments. That was probably my least favorite of all those.
It was
puzzles.
just, I guess it was just like just adding a different mechanic, really. Do you know? And it wasn't something that was overdone in the game. It was just for those areas.
I have to say I did enjoy him as well, and I really enjoyed the fact that, you know, one of the early ones, example of the gyro puzzles that you do is where it's like a little maze with a ball in it and you have to get it to the end, like a classic little like toy that you get as a kid. But you can actually just flip the whole platform on its other side and just like roll the ball off and win instantly. I love that that's an option there, and it's not immediately obvious either. I'm not sure. Well, I presume they not intended for you to do that, but I left the door
It's
open
there,
again.
though.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about some of the characters in the game, actually? Because I know we've said that. I think exactly. I know we've said that there are. I think we'd all be in agreement that there are some issues with pacing and story here. That it's. You can say, like Michael, I think you said that you just think you like the design of it and that's fine. But I think you probably would agree that it's a little difficult to get invested in.
Yeah. And in terms of characters, I liked Zelda in the game.
Zelda's great.
Zelda's cool.
Zelda is brilliant.
And Link to a certain extent, because one thing we didn't mention is that for some reason, you get dialogue options in this game, despite Link not having an actual voice. And oftentimes they're pretty funny. Like I remember at the beginning when the king is basically saying to you, "Oh, I'll give you this glider if you do these puzzles," and you keep saying, "Yeah, just give me the glider now. When do I get the glider? Stop talking. I want the glider." But the characters overall are pretty, like, it's like kids cartoon stuff, really. Like they're really they're one note. One quick thing I'll say as well, I wasn't the biggest fan of a lot of the voice acting in the game. Some of it was like one example I'd give is Mifna. Is that her name? The fish girl. I thought her delivery was very stilted. "Hello, I am Mintha. You are from the olden times, and I am here."
You realise you're just speaking in an English accent, so what you're saying is you don't like the English accent.
No, but like Zelda has an English accent, and I thought her performance was very good in the game.
That's true.
But yeah, some of the voice acting, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, is this the first Zelda with voice acting?
Yeah, it is.
So some of it was good, some of it didn't hit the mark for me. But what did you think of the characters?
I mean, yeah, you kind of know where I stand. I wasn't like hugely invested in the characters or the world, so it was a bit like, nah. You know, I didn't love him or hate him, really. Do you know?
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be my sentiment as well. It's there's nothing really in here to say, "Oh, that was amazing," except for Zelda, who I think we can all agree was really good. And actually, I do think this is the best version of Zelda they've ever done. One thing I will say that, and again, this might be a little controversial, I think it might be time for Link to have a voice.
Yeah, man. Jack 2 was such a success when they gave me. Yeah, I don't give a fuck about the rules. I got a gun now.
And guns, that's another thing. I do. Sean's 100% on board.
We need to bring this game into the 21st century.
Legend of Zelda. Fuck this. I don't know. I do kind of feel that it's time for Link to have a voice. Have we lost you, Sean?
No, it's all right.
Sorry, it's just the Legend of Zelda, parentheses, fuck this.
Get that on screen. No, I do sort of feel like it might be time, because obviously for the longest time I was always very adamant that Link shouldn't have a voice because he has to be a cipher. But for a game this big, I think you need to have something. It doesn't have to be huge, it doesn't have to be massive, but something to latch onto. You know, I just felt like he was too blank in this, and this might again be coming back to the fact that like I didn't have much to latch onto here, despite the fact that I played it for hours. I didn't. You latch onto the gameplay, not the story in this, and I think they could have done something with him to make it a little more engaging.
That's a really good point, because I think you find with open world games, they are split into, you either have a voiced protagonist with agency or you don't, and it's basically a blank cipher for the player to role play as or whatever. And I think the ones that have the blank cipher character are generally less engaging story wise. So like Elden Ring, that's a controversial take, but I don't think a lot of people aren't there for the narrative in those games. And Skyrim as well, like that's got some interesting mini storylines when you go to like a town or something, but like overarching stuff wasn't really that engaging. It's the world and the exploration. Whereas, you know, Red Dead 2, or even, I know I shit on it, but Ghost of Tsushima, by having a character with their own motivations and their own personality, a lot of time you can like sort of embody them in a way and play as them and make decisions based off their personality. And it does make the central storyline a lot more engaging in general, I think. And yeah, it's one of those weird ones where, are we saying we want a better storyline in this game and it'll like paper over any cracks in the game? Not necessarily. It's an amazing game, as Steve has said 7 times, but it's definitely a flaw within.
But yeah, I think like there might be a chance that this is something they might delve into in the next game in the series, in Tears from the Kingdom. They might actually give Link a bit of motivation, you know? So, and like I said before, it doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be something as simple as what they did in Wind Waker, where they just gave him a great personality using facial expressions and body movement. It's just with this one, not so much. Like in my opinion, the best performance that Link gives in this is the bits where he sees the Great Fairy and he gets terrified of the way she's like coming onto him while she's upgrading his equipment. Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw the way that happens later on.
Yeah, sexually terrified is like the main sort of thing I think of when Link the Twink is what I call him.
Sexually terrified is definitely the adjective that like Link should be using all the time in all of his games. But yeah, just Sean, in case you didn't know, so you can upgrade your equipment I think 4 times. The first time, basically, the Great Fairy basically kisses her fingers and waves them at you. The second time, she blows a kiss at you. The third time, she leans in and she actually kisses you, and there's a close-up of Link's face going, and
then the fourth time, it's penetrative sex.
Almost, because in the fourth time, she basically grabs Link and she just like drags him into the flower she's in, and she just goes underwater, and it cuts to black. And then when you see Link again, he's just lying on the edge looking exhausted. So Jesus. I don't know what's happening there, but it's basically very intense, and you know, he's not a boy anymore.
You'd be scared as a child playing that.
Yeah, fucking Jesus, PG-13 lads, come on.
Sorry, go ahead.
The only thing I was going to say is I have an anecdote that has no place in this podcast, but I'm going to slot it right in here anyway.
Go for it, man.
So when I was a kid, like, I don't know, 7, 8 years old, we had a guy who drove around in a van. I lived out in the countryside, by the way. Drove around in a van and would call up once a week, and you get into the back of the van And this isn't
this
dodgy.
is going great.
Don't make dodgy jokes.
We don't have to, man. You're doing it yourself.
You get into the back of the van, and he'd have a load of videotapes, DVDs, and games that you could rent for a week and then give them back to him.
What was the fee?
I can't remember. It wasn't bad as far as I remember, and like we didn't live near an Extravision, which would be a rental.
Listen, Sean, he could afford it as a child without an solid income, so it was probably more of a service than a fee.
That's all you need to know.
Fucking hell. But anyway, we called him the Video Man.
Man, there's a film in here somewhere, or a TV series.
The Video Man. But anyway, we'd give him like a box of chocolates at Christmas or something like that. My mom was like, she'd give the postman something at Christmas as well. You know, that sort of Irish country mammy sort of thing. So we'd give him something every Christmas. And then one Christmas, he gave me a game.
For keeps.
For keeps, yeah. A PS1 game. It was definitely like one of the ones that nobody ever rented. So I brought it in, and for years I could not remember what the game was. I knew it was a racing game. And then last night I randomly stumbled across a video of it on YouTube, and it was Rage Racer for the PS1.
Rage Racer?
No. Rage Racer. it's the Bucci to Gucci.
Wait, what the fuck is Rage Racer?
You'll see it on screen. Rage Racer is basically a rip-off of Ridge Racer. It's like a PS1 racing game in city street like sort of circuits and stuff like that. And I remember back then thinking, this is so shit. This is the worst. I got this for free and I still think it's crap. So sorry guys, I just had to share that with everyone.
I'm glad you did, man. That was brilliant.
Yeah. If there's anything else you need to like get off your chest, any like repressed memories.
Now's the time for it.
Yeah. I have two more things I want to bring up, and then I feel, are you bringing us to an end? Are you bringing us to climax here?
I'm close.
Tell your story again, Michael. Describe the van.
The Video Man.
Fuck's sake. Come on. Hold it together.
Postman. So two other things I just wanted to bring up that I thought, well, maybe three. No, two or three other things. Just a few other mechanics in the game that I think we didn't really touch on like enough. One thing is that I didn't use at all, and I think you guys might have used more than me, was horse riding is something I just did not do in this game whatsoever.
I don't think it was done especially well. It is handy to get around sometimes, but the climbing and gliding is a lot more fun. I think, and the stable system. Do you know what the biggest flaw with the horses is? Is that they are geography
Badly
dependent.
explained?
Sort of badly explained, but the fact that when you're on like another part of the map and you whistle for your horse, like it sometimes can't get to you, or it takes ages to get to you. It's not to bring back Elden Ring again, but the fact that Elden Ring has an instant horse button that like it materializes underneath you is one of the best design decisions in the game. So yeah, I agree. I really didn't use horses. Like, it was cool when you're on them, and I'm glad that they're a part of the game, but yeah, sort of underutilized, I'd say.
Yeah, I think same. Like, I remember the stable section where you like learn how to like tame a horse and stuff like that. But after that, I don't really think I used the horse that much. There was a few times where, like you said, I was whistling for him and it just wasn't able to get to me. So yeah.
He's dead.
Yeah. I personally don't think it was it's not that it wasn't well implemented. I think they made the other ways of traversal too fun. And that's not a bad thing. It's just, like you said, Michael, climbing, gliding, and also the very first thing I did before I did anything else in the game was activate all the towers. So once I did that, I could teleport anywhere. So
wow, that's a very efficient way of playing the game. But like, did you just have to bypass a load of stuff then?
It was just the first thing I wanted to do. I don't know why. I think I just wanted to see what the map looked like straight away rather than leaving bits blank. So it was tough. There was one or two towers that there's one tower in particular that you might remember. There's one where it's in the middle of a lake and it's got like 3 thunder mages like prancing around it. Yeah. So every time they hit you with like lightning, it sets all the water around you like sets them all off as well. So really, really difficult. But yeah, no, once I did that, I could just teleport anywhere, and it just meant I didn't use the horses at all.
One quick thing just to interject, I thought of it when you were saying, you explored all the map, is one of my favourite moments in the game was, and like it goes without saying, the best part of this game is exploring and finding different things. And It was when, and you probably found this place as well, Steve, you're at the top left corner of the map, and I'm just exploring, like I wasn't really going in any direction, and I stumbled upon that huge stone labyrinth, the big maze that's in the corner, and I was like, I had no idea this was here. I'd never seen this before, and this is a completely new sort of environment and a new challenge. It's amazing to see. I love when open world games do that. Elden Ring does that very well too, as well. It constantly surprises you with what's around the corner.
Yeah, there's lots of great moments like that are just really, really surprising. I found a village on the bottom right of the map screen. It's just like a seaside village, has nothing to do with the story, and you could circumvent it easily. It's just a random village, but there's lots of little side quests there. Really random. I think there's two moments I just want to like highlight. These are like two of my most like, oh my god, that was amazing moments, things that I just found. The first one I'm sure you probably found was the first time I saw one of the giant dragons flying through the sky.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah,
that's an incredible moment, because again, this is something that I just never saw in YouTube videos or anything like that. I didn't know dragons were a thing in this, so that's incredible. Spoilers, by the way, to anyone listening. The other thing was, so you probably know there's these great fairy fountains, but there's one horse god fountain. Did you come across that?
No. Okay.
So there's one fountain. It looks, for all intents and purposes, it looks like a great fairy fountain. But when you activate it, instead of like the light, tinkly fairy music, you get this death metal. No, you get this like really ominous, like kind of ethereal music. It's like, ooh, what's going on here? And this giant creature with a giant like horse skull for a head pops out, and I don't really know what his purpose is, because he kind of measures your relationship with your horse, and he says that he'll punish you if you let any of your horses die. But as I said, I never used the horses, so I have no idea what he was actually for.
That's cool that there's this random shit in the game that's sort of like, if you're invested in horses, it's cool. But yeah, that's the hallmark of good open world design, is that it's constantly surprising you, and there's little secrets and nooks and crannies and stuff around. That's why we sometimes bounce off the Witcher and Ubisoft sort of approach of everything's on the map, you got a checklist, there's no surprises, you fast travel here. It's not fun to explore those worlds.
Yeah, that's fair. Great. I'm kind of at that stage. We're gonna like bring it down to the central question, guys. But before I do, Steve touched on it earlier about the sequel to the game, and I just wanted to ask, like, what do you guys think? Like, how is the sequel going to follow this up? Since this, like, the legacy of Breath of the Wild is huge, there's been like multiple spin-offs and stuff. Like Genshin Impact is probably the biggest one. That's or not spin-off. Sorry, I mean like clones.
Yeah.
But so, how do you think the sequel is going to follow this up? Like, do you think they're going to have to introduce like just more of the same, or a lot of new mechanics or something? What do you think they can do?
I think we've sort of touched on it, but I think there's enough sort of rough edges on Breath of the Wild that they can improve. Like the dungeon layout and stuff like that, I think could be. And as much as I love the Guardians, a bit more variety in the in the Guardian design would be good as well. And from what I've seen of the trailers, they seem to be introducing a lot more verticality to it as well. So going through the sky and stuff like that. We still don't know a lot about the game, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen any like proper gameplay footage that isn't just like a pre-cut trailer. So I do think there's enough to be improved there. And as Steve said, giving Link some more agency and making him like a bit more of a character would be cool as well.
Steve, any thoughts?
Well, first of all, like, I'm of course pretty surprised that it's getting a sequel, because of course this was critically maligned on release. But I personally have made my stance known that I personally think this is quite a good game. But I do agree with you, Michael. I think that they're probably just. I think a lot of people will disagree with this point, but I personally think they're going to lean back into a more traditional format. They're going to keep all the things that make Breath of the Wild good: the exploration, the combat, the very like liberating, go in any direction kind of style. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if they do bring back the kinds of dungeons that we saw in the likes of Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess. But designed within an inch of their life. Like, I think because I think those are the points that people had the most issues with. And I do think there's going to be a heavier, not as heavy as Skyward Sword, but nonetheless a heavier focus on story, which I would really, really welcome, because I liked the story in Breath of the Wild. I just didn't particularly get on board with the way it was told.
Yeah.
So,
that's
that would
fair.
suit me down to the ground.
That sort of reminds me of, again, to bring it up, Elden Ring's approach, where they had this huge open world, but they had these sort of legacy dungeons, which were basically like a Dark Souls level dotted around the map as well. And they were as intricately designed as any sort of Dark Souls area. I think that would be a very interesting approach for them to take.
Cool. Okay, so the central question, the game currently sits at number 14 on Metacritic. Do we believe it deserves its place? Should it be lower? Should it be higher? Steve, I just want to throw this to you first, because you did mention that you think this is a better game than Ocarina of Time, which sits at number 1. So do you think this should be number 1?
Or number 0.
Or number 0?
Hot take, guys. I think
Wow.
that this is a pretty good game.
Hold on to your hats,
I
guys.
have to say. You know what? I do believe that this should be the number 1 game.
Wow.
Yeah,
Of all
no,
time.
The thing I'm going to the comparison that I didn't make the entire time, and I'm surprised at myself for not making it, is one game that I absolutely love, because it was such like a mind-blowing moment for me, was Dark Souls, because that was when I was like, oh my god, this has changed gaming forever. And since playing that, no game has compared until this game.
Okay.
This is the first game I have come across that has even come close to approaching the depth and complexity of Dark Souls, and the sheer like moment-to-moment fun of Donkey Konga. You know, it's somehow manages to do both of those things. And that's not nothing. Like, this is a game that I would happily pick up and play for an hour, like any day of the week, because it's just so engaging. I think, even though at the start of this I said I was kind of cold and like emotionally detached to it, I still think it's just an incredible game. So yeah, I do think this should be the numver 1 game.
Wow.
Oh, okay. I can't really follow that.
Pretty huge drop there from Steve.
I agree. It's very hard to say, because one thing we keep coming back to is the legacy that these games leave behind. And I think Ocarina is sort of unrivaled in that way, unless you go back to fucking the first video game ever made or something like that, in terms of influencing. Let's make another one. I believe. Yeah. But yeah, I have to agree mostly with Steve that it's sort of unrivaled. It's amazing that they took that many swings that worked. It's really admirable that they innovated in the ways they did and managed to, like, by the time this came out, the open world design was like everywhere.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a huge surprise for the game to go open world, but the fact that they managed to make probably the best open world game ever made, and still sort of have it work within the Zelda framework, is a triumph. Not without its points where it could be improved, but yeah, I definitely think it should be higher on the list. I think it deserves to be in the top 10 at the very least.
Would you agree that it's a pretty good game?
I wouldn't go that far. That's crazy.
Maybe just good game. Don't know if you'd say pretty good.
I'd say it's a pretty
Someday
game.
I'll get somebody on my side soon enough. I'll find someone on the internet who thinks it's good.
Controversial opinions.
Yeah, my opinion anyway, I think I agree with you, it should be higher as well. Like, just because it's not for me, I can still appreciate everything you guys are saying about it, and that it is a brilliant open world game, like you said, Michael. Surprised by a few of the games that preceded it, really, in the list.
The more I reflect on it, the critical reception to Grand Theft Auto 5 was pretty inflated for a game with such obvious flaws. Like, I know we're like we've the benefit of hindsight with a lot of these games, and maybe it's somewhat tainted by just the fact that Grand Theft Auto 5 has sort of been beaten like into a pulp, like a dead horse. But I would definitely say you're right. There's a lot of games that are higher up that I'd be like, not as good as Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay.
What's happening next?
What's happening next? I'm not even sure who's. I'm going to put it over to Michael, I guess. Yeah, to let us know.
So next we have another sequel to a game that's come up before. We have Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. Thrice, yeah.
As it was formerly known by Neversoft.
So that's
Tony Hawk's the third.
Yeah, Esquire. That's going to be the next one, and we'll have plenty of memeage for you then, guys. But
Until next time, everyone.
Thanks for joining us.
Please leave a like and a subscribe or whatever if you enjoy the video. And we have a proper outro that we'll record after this.
This is exactly why I said we should have this show. So leave a like and reply or whatever.
Yeah, no problem. Let me just rewind and we'll say our goodbyes and then we'll re-record that part. So
no, we're leaving all this in.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Good luck.
Okay, thank you so much for listening, everybody. We are the Cardboard Box Item, and this is our spin-off series called From the Top, where we review the top games on Metacritic. If you are watching us on YouTube, please leave us a like, and if you really enjoy this episode, go ahead and click that subscribe button. It really helps us out.
You can find us on YouTube as the Cardboard Box Item, or on Spotify you will find us under From the Top for this Metacritic countdown. Please consider leaving us a rating and review, and we'll see you on the next episode.